Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Bridget McNulty. I'm from Sweet Life Diabetes Community and I'm so happy to be here with you this evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I am so looking forward to this evening. We have some fantastic panelists and we're going to be discussing one of the things I feel really passionate about, which is behavior change and how small differences can make a big impact on our diabetes management. The reason I feel passionate about this is because I've noticed what a huge difference it can make if I just implement tiny little changes to my daily routine or to the way that I'm managing my diabetes. I can see that it actually does have a huge impact. So we're going to be learning from some people with fantastic advice to share this evening. And please ask us any questions you have. We have a chunk of time set aside at the end to discuss any questions. And this is an Ask Me Anything. I want to say thanks to Abbott Freestyle Libra for sponsoring this event and for letting us all be together again. For those of you who joined us last year, we did 3 AMAs, one just about living with type 1 diabetes and 2 on the emotional side of diabetes and the challenges that come with that. And this is really just an open, free space to discuss anything you want to about living with type 1. We are all in the same boat here. I've been living with type 1 for the last 14 years and all our panelists have also been living with type 1 except for our behavioral designer who is sharing some of the science. One last thing before we dive in, a disclaimer. Please don't be taking this advice as medical advice. None of us are medical experts. Don't make any changes to your diet. If it reacts to your medication, anything that is a big change, please discuss with your doctor first. Okay, let's dive in. As you've seen, we're talking about diabetes life hacks, and we're basing it actually on, many of you will have gotten the journal, the Abbott Diabetes Journal that we created, and right at the beginning of it is an article on what is behavior change. Oh, I don't know how the screen works. And so we're going to be talking about that and some of the small diabetes life hacks that we can incorporate into our lives. Please share any that you have too, because we're all in the same boat together. So our first speaker is Sebastian Thompson. He is a behavioral design consultant who's going to be translating some of the behavioral science for us, so some of the actual principles behind it. Hi, Seb. Thank you so much for being here. I am just going to throw it over to you. What is behavior change?
Thanks, Bridget. Yeah, so, starting out a little bit about me. Most of the time I work with big organizations to help them improve their products and services by using the learnings from this field called behavioral science. I'm going to try my best to explain as quickly as possible what it is and how it can maybe help you and in your lives and how it can help you maybe improve your behaviors on a daily basis to make your life better. So basically, in a nutshell, it's the study of why people do the things that they do, and then how we can change small things in their sort of environment or context to help nudge them towards making better decisions and ultimately engaging in better behaviors. It's a few things that are really important to know and things that it's taken me a few years to learn in this space. The one is that we need to recognize that we are social and emotional creatures. We are not robots. We are not perfectly rational. And so that means that knowledge doesn't necessarily always equal action. And I'm sure you've all experienced this when you've been told something by your doctor, or you've been told something by maybe a coach or maybe a teacher at school, and you know what the right thing to do is, but for some reason you end up not doing it. So there are always times when we overeat, when we spend more than we should, when we don't go for that walk that we were supposed to. And really, behavioral science is looking at why is it that we do these things when, rationally we know that the right thing would be to not eat that extra portion of food or to not not go for a walk. So understanding why that is the case, and then understanding what we can do about it in our lives, is what behavioral science is really all about. And I think another important thing to recognize is that there aren't silver bullets in this space. Because we are social and emotional creatures, and because we all have different backgrounds and different contexts and different things that make us tick, we need to recognize that what works for some people might not work for others. And so somebody might tell you that they've got the greatest behavioral hack ever and it's improved their life 1,000%. And you try it and you're like, well, this is doing nothing for me. That doesn't mean that behavioral science is not working. It just means that that particular intervention doesn't work for you because it doesn't respond to who you are as a person and what makes you tick. So what I'm going to talk more about is understanding like how do we as behavioral scientists design interventions to help you change your behavior. And often what we do is we use 4 kind of main big principles that I kind of want to share with you. And I think once you learn about them, you will see different ways in your life where you can apply them. So the first one is about making it easy. And really, you should be thinking all the time, how can I make whatever it is that I want to do as easy as possible? Can I default myself into doing something? Can I put something in my path that makes it really easy for me not to forget? And it's, whether it be that your medication is sitting right next to your toothbrush, so after you brush your teeth, it's quick and easy to just pick up that medication. Don't hide it in a cupboard somewhere or put it away from yourself. The next thing to do is to make the things that you want to do as attractive as possible. And one of the ways to do that is to pair it with something that you like. So say, for example, you need to go for a walk every day, or you need to do some exercise, and you also really like a particular podcast, or you're really enjoying an audiobook or something like that. You can make a rule for yourself that says, like, I'm only going to listen to the audiobook when I go and do the exercise. And that makes the thing that you don't like, exercise, more attractive because it's coupled with this thing that you really do like. So that's making things attractive. The next tip is to make things social. And because we're social creatures, if you can bundle things together with friends, it will make it much more likely that you will do it. So think about things where you can do things as a group, like commit to a walk with a friend or a few friends, and you'll find that it's more difficult to get out of it than if it's just you by yourself. Try and hook into as many different networks as you can, whether it's like maybe a food club with healthy eaters or something like that, where you all talk about like what you've cooked over the week. Those sorts of things will help you to stick to those good behaviors that you've set for yourself. And the fourth principle is to make things timely. And this is really about making sure that you pick the right times to do the right things. I think one of the simplest examples of this that we've all experienced is going shopping when you are tired or hungry. So that is obviously an absolute no-no. And we all know what happens when you get back home after you've shopped when you're tired or hungry. For some reason, in your carts, there are a whole lot of things that you know are terrible for you. And really, so thinking about the timing of when you do a particular activity is really important in ensuring that you get to that behavior that you're after. So thinking about like, okay, cool, I'm going to shop once a week and I'm going to do it, like in the morning after I drop the kids off at school or something like that. It is much better idea than saying like, yeah, after homework at 7:30, I'm going to go past the shops and try now and do the shopping. So thinking about timing. A way to remember all of these things is you can remember the acronym EAST, so making it easy, attractive, social, and timely. And if you think about the behaviors that you want to do and think about how you can use these different tools, basically you can design your own behavioral change interventions to help you to stick to those behaviors over time. And so the last thing I'd say to you is that you have to be your own behavioral scientist. you have to experiment with what works for you, and you have to run little experiments on yourself to see what interventions work for you and what interventions don't. So try and do that as much as you can, and try and experiment and see what works and what doesn't. Because, as I say, there's no silver bullets, and what works for one person might not work for you.
Thank you. You did like behavioral science in 5 minutes. I didn't know it was possible. What I love about that too, I love that these are principles, but they really apply very directly to living with diabetes too, because there's so much extra complexity that living with type 1 particularly brings to your life, that if there are little hacks that we can do, and it feels like kind of like being sneaky smart, that if you can do a little hack that will make your life easier or make it more fun to do something you know you should be doing, or the social thing. I had a friend I was walking with 3 times a week. She moved overseas, and I thought I had way more motivation than I did. And then all of a sudden I was like, no one's going to know. No one's going to know. That's the trouble. Yeah, accountability and timing. Thank you so much, Seb. So now what we're going to do is take those principles and see how they translate into people's lives with different people living with type 1. And then we're going to round back to you before we open up questions. Hi, Lungile. Welcome. You're very welcome. So first up, our first panelist is Renate, and she's going to be talking about, so what I asked is I asked each of the panelists to explain what small changes made a big difference to their diabetes management. And Renate is going to be talking about how she changed treating lows and what a difference that made. Welcome, Renate. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Bridget. Okay, so since I fell pregnant in July, I've definitely had a lot of lows, which was so scaring and very difficult to treat at first. So you would think that you should eat a lot of sweets just to get that sugar rush. But at the end of the day, you actually feel much worse than you felt before. So the hack that I have now fully enveloped is taking my glucose C sweets. So it's almost the same as Super C's. So I take 4 of the glucose C sweets, and then I test my sugars with my Libra sensor, which is great. And then 15 minutes after the first 4 sweets, I'll test it again. So in the beginning, it was quite difficult because you actually want that low to go fast. Like you feel like you're dying. So you want that low to go like quickly. So the thing is, you need patience to wait 15 minutes, and 15 minutes feels like a very long time. But my hack is eat either Super C's or the glucose C's that you can find at Dischem. I find that I used to drink the sachets, that the glucose sachets, but it leaves an aftertaste in my mouth, so I don't like that. But with the glucose C sweets, it's quite nice, and it tastes like a sweet. So I've tried eating a whole chocolate. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because I feel so tired if I have that sugar rush. And then
I once woke up with a low and decided it was sensible to eat chocolate ice cream in the middle of the night while I was low. And oh my goodness, I must have eaten half a tub. I was half asleep too. And then I felt like death because, of course, you spike and then you stay high for hours and hours.
Yes.
Because apparently I'm not a doctor, but apparently if you go very low, the reaction makes your insulin not work properly afterwards. So if you overtreat a hypo, you're ruined for hours.
Yes.
So I love this. I remember reading Bright Spots and Landmines. Kirsten on Everyday's Diabetes Day just posted about it. Lovely book. But he says don't ever use food to treat a low. And when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Like have something prescribed that this is what I do when I go low. And then That helps a lot. Someone
Yeah.
was asking what they were called, the name of what you're taking. Can you share have you got them there?
Yes, glucose C.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So you find it at Dischem and you get it in a pack of 3. So in my first trimester, I literally had tons of this because this literally saved me. And it was so weird because I never had lows. I was always in the highs, And in my first trimester, I literally had so many lows that I literally had to lower my dosage of my long acting insulin. And second trimester, it was up again.
Same thing.
And
Pregnancy timing is an adventure.
it is, don't tell me about it. It's a huge adventure, but life learning and life changing as well.
Absolutely.
Because I can tell you now, I haven't had one weird craving because mentally I've made a note. You are not caring for yourself. You're caring for a little baby as well. So it has been life changing. And like I said the other night, I never go without my sweets. I have either
Great tip.
2 in my bag, I have 2 in the car, I have 2 in the extra bag. So because
Very cool.
I always want to be prepared.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a situation where you can't
When
be
traffic jam and you're stuck, yeah, very, very smart. I
yeah,
often stash sugar sachets everywhere, like in the cubby hole of the car and in my handbag. But
yeah,
the trouble is that then they disintegrate after a while, and then you
yes,
just have sugar all over your handbag. So your idea
yeah.
is much, much better. Thank
So
you so
that's
much.
I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget.
Next up, we're going to ask Laura to share her hack. She is talking about using a cookbook for low carb recipes. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Bridget, and hi, everyone else. Thanks for joining tonight. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about this cookbook that I've been using, especially this year. I think with the new year, it was easy to implement a new change because everybody's setting new goals, and I thought, no, I think I need to try and restart on the low carb train. I think I had slowly fallen off a little bit. It can be extremely difficult to source low carb food if you don't plan beforehand. So I got given this cookbook towards the end of last year. And I hadn't opened it until the beginning of this year, when I quite literally just walked past it on my bookshelf, and
Call your name.
it was calling my name. It was time. So I picked it up, and what I enjoyed about it, it's called the Low Carb Solution for Diabetics. Here it is. I'm not
Cookbook.
promoting just this cookbook or anything. I think there are a few low carb cookbooks. But yeah, this one I particularly enjoyed because it was written by a mom of a type 1 diabetic. So she quite aptly describes how changing her son from a normal / high carb plus insulin regime to a low carb plus less insulin regime affected his sugars. And she quite nicely depicts that in graphs in the beginning of the cookbook. And I'm a fan of evidence-based projects and studies. So I enjoyed seeing the graph, and I knew that it made sense to change to a low carb diet for me. And after the first day of trying this cookbook, my sugars went from being about 75% within range to 99% in range.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
That's
I noticed
remarkable.
quite a sudden and effective change in
Yeah.
my glucose. Yeah, so
Great.
it's
And so helpful for the blood. Hey, I think that's the thing, is that otherwise it can just feel as if you're trying to do it, but you don't really know what you're doing. That is an amazing cookbook. I also really enjoy it. Lisa was saying earlier, how do you stop eating carbs because they're so delicious? And for me, there are some that my guideline is this worth jabbing for. So there are some that I just love. I love fruit, and I love homemade ice cream, and I got an ice cream maker over the holidays, which perhaps not the best gift for someone with type 1, but homemade ice cream, much better for you than normal ice cream. And then I resist the things I can resist. There are lots of things that I can resist, but the ones that really bring me joy, I still eat. But that's what Seb was saying in the beginning. It's so individual, and many of you are sharing your eating plans and what works for you, and what works for one person doesn't work for another person. And it's just about finding what actually works for you. But I love the idea of using a cookbook too. Thank you so much for sharing. Next up, Pizzo is going to be telling us about how opening up about diabetes in all aspects of his life helped him. Hi, Pizzo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and hi to everyone. Indeed, being diagnosed with diabetes, or knowing someone who's diagnosed with diabetes, may throw up many questions about how it fits in your daily lifestyle, from how it makes you feel to managing it at work, managing it at home, managing it while you are driving, traveling, whatsoever. But being diagnosed with diabetes and living with this condition can sometimes feel overwhelming. But this is quite normal. You have to accept it. What is important today is that you have to accept yourself that, look, I'm a special person. I'm different. And I can do it. Tell yourself that you are special, you are different. But when we're with other people, you are not special, you are not different. You are just like them. Mm-hmm. I've lived with type 1 for 40 years. Wow. I was diagnosed at the age of 5 as a child. Never enjoyed my childhood or my teenagehood because I had to take care of myself. I mean, at the age of 13, which is a sad story, never share it with people. While I was 13, I just knelt down and asked God to take me, because living with injections was a taboo. But God said, you are mad, you're not going anywhere. And, today I'm proud because I'm running my own awareness campaigns with regard to diabetes. I'm helping a lot of people. How am I doing this? I'm doing this because I've accepted that I am diabetes, and diabetes is me. I've made diabetes my partner. I've made diabetes my friend. I've made diabetes my brother, my father, my mother, my cousin, whatsoever, anything that you like to associate yourself with. I've associated my life with diabetes. Diabetes is my life. That is why today I'm proud I can live any lifestyle that can be given to me with diabetes. But now, the important thing that made me to live such a long time with diabetes is simple things. I'm talking today, it's not like I've never gone through the challenges of diabetes. I've experienced comatose. I've experienced diabetes attacks. I've experienced stroke, but look at me now. Here am I, and all thanks to the good Lord. I manage all this because I've accepted that I'm living with diabetes, and diabetes is still me. Now, what is also important is that at home, even extended family members, let them know about your diet, let them know about your medicine, let them know about, your challenges. Let them know about that. Even at work, let the HR know, let your colleagues know, teach them about your medicine. Be it insulin, be it whatever type of injection, be it tablets or whatever. Let them know. Don't hide it. One of the things that made us to struggle with this condition is we are hiding. Times of hiding must stop. We must tell people who we are. We must be proud of ourselves. And once we are proud of ourselves, then we will be stress-free. One of the other things that contribute to failing to manage this condition is stress. When you are stressful, your blood sugar will never ever come down. It will forever be up. You can take all the diet, do all the exercises. It will never ever come down because you are stressed. So stress is one of the complications and the contributing factors of diabetes. So today I'm proud because I can travel, I can work as I'm working as a radio personality, I can drive, I can do everything that I need to do. Why? Because I'm winning this disease. And I've lived long and I will continue to live long. I'm fighting diabetes and I will continue to fight it. So once you are there, if you are early diagnosed, please don't despair.
Thank you so much, Pitso. 40 years is incredible. I'm 26 years off having 40 years. And I also think it's great to be able to see someone who's lived with it for so long, because I've seen so many of your comments coming in saying it is really difficult sometimes, and it's difficult when you're the parent of someone who is living with type 1. That's a whole other set of problems. And honestly, I think parents of kids with type 1 are absolute superheroes. I don't know how you do it. And I think all of us have times when we struggle, but I love your message, Pitso, that all we can do is keep going and do our best, and telling other people about it is so important, because self-acceptance makes such a difference. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Nick, who's going to be talking about his diabetes life hack, which is exercising and how it's impacted his blood sugar. Also, it is Nick's birthday today. So can we all give Nick a round of happy birthdays? I am not going to sing to you because that would be excruciating for everyone. But I'm so impressed that Nick is here on his birthday instead of being out at a fancy dinner. So thank you very much for joining us, Nick.
Thank you. Thanks very much to Sweet Life for having me tonight. Very much a privilege, my first time in this sort of space. And I've been a diabetic since 2015. And so it's quite nice to get into the space and hear everyone's differences and how it all works, because as they say, one size does not fit all. So tonight, my tip is going to be on exercise, and this can be running, which has been a passion of mine, but it can also be walking, gym, yoga, whatever. The emphasis is just on moving, and so that's kind of where I am going to be going. My achievements, following my diagnosis in 2015, I've always been sporty and into all these things, but I got into trail running, which was my go-to, I've run various trail races. Name a couple. I've done the Bat Run, which is about 30 odd Ks. You start that at 6 p.m. at night and finishing at sort of 1:30 in the morning. And obviously, being a type 1 diabetic, it's, running is quite scary, doing a race, but at night is something a little bit more daunting. And my brother was the race director, and he kind of said to me, no, it's fine, because you go up the one peak and you come down. And so you're seeing people all the time, which made me feel a bit more comfortable. And then I've done Ultra Trail Drakensberg, 62 Ks, Cape Town Marathon, And my biggest achievement was the Ultra Trail Cape Town 65, which is, on and around Table Mountain. And so it just, since my diagnosis, having known absolutely nothing about, I don't know if I could spell the word when I was diagnosed. And so it came as a major shock. And I just got into the running, and that's why I would like to push it out there to those who are maybe not moving. And I can say, in the last while, I haven't been moving as much, and 2022 is going to be something that I would like to get back into, whether it's running 65Ks or simply just moving for 20 minutes. And for me, that's what it's about. So I just urge people to get out there and move. As it was mentioned earlier, get into groups, just make it fun. It doesn't have to be a job. How has running helped me? Clear headspaces, productivity, energy levels. I prefer to run in the mornings, and then I feel my day at work, wherever it may be, I'm just a better person. And ultimately, good sugar levels. So if I can end off by just saying, for those that are maybe not moving, I look back at when I was starting out, and my brother said to me, start slow, get out there for 20 minutes. You can run, walk, and you slowly build it up. And distance is irrelevant. It's just about being out there. And then from there, you build that into 40 minutes, and a month later, you're running for an hour. And so all I can say is,
it's difficult, hey?
And the start is always difficult.
And I think also if you start too strong, so if you're like, I'm gonna run for 45 minutes every single day, and then you miss one day and you're like, oh well, now I've just lost everything. But 20 minutes is such an achievable amount of time, because it's not even half an hour. Anyone should be able to find 20 minutes. And so you can almost trick yourself into doing that. And once you get in the habit of that, as you say, it's much easier to increase your time.
Absolutely. You start enjoying it, and you just slowly build up, do a bit of body strength on the side, and it becomes, and then you start eating better, and the habits everything just improves. So I just urge people to get out there.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you, Nick. And I love the emphasis on moving your body also, rather than, especially now post-COVID, like we don't have to be going to gyms. I mean, we should be going to gyms, but there are so many different ways to move your body that are really fun too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our final panelist is Naim, and he's going to be telling us his hacks on figuring out how to eat oats for breakfast, which I have to say I thought was an impossibility for people with diabetes, and I'm not sure how Naim has managed this, but he's got some food hacks to share with us. Thanks so much for being here, Naim. Oh, hang on, you're on mute.
Thanks, Bridget. Hi, everyone, and happy birthday, Nick. Okay, when it comes to oats, I think breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. And I've tried many cereals, and everything just spikes my sugar levels, just go up very high. And I used to have oats as well, and oats also shoots my sugar levels up. And I was searching and checking up what can we do to try and keep the sugar levels in range. And I think Professor Siegel at once said that start off with protein first. And I said, let me give that a try and add a bit of protein into the oats. And I've added protein in the oats, cooked it with whey protein, and it kept my sugar levels in range. And I tried it a few times, and yes, kept it in range. And I love cycling quite a lot. So especially when you start cycling, you want your sugar levels to be above 12, 13. You're not too happy. So it kept it in range so you can cycle better, do a better endurance. And so I would say,
even when you don't do cycling, can you eat it and stay stable?
I've tried it also without any exercise, say after I have a meal, after I have oats, and it kept the sugar levels in range as well.
That is remarkable. I didn't know that was possible. Wow, thank you. What a gift. It's always such a relief to get new breakfast ideas, because I think it's one of the trickiest meals, especially because so many of us, we've discussed before, have feet on the floor syndrome, or the dawn phenomenon where insulin doesn't work the same in the morning. Yeah, so that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I've added what's this? Peanut butter, and peanut butter works as well with the oats. So that's another added thing in there.
I love it. Any other facts you want to throw out before we take it back to Seb?
That's it for today. Yeah, that's all.
I was wondering if you had your own cookbook coming out soon. Naim, thank you so much for sharing, Naim. So now we're going to quickly hand over to Seb just to give us like a 2-minute roundup of if you spotted any behavioral science principles in what our panelists are talking about from a diabetes perspective. And then we'll be opening up to ask the panelists the questions, any questions you have.
Cool, thanks, Bridget. Yeah, like I mean, it's really cool to hear a whole lot of the different panelists, like ways in which they've, sort of hacked their behavior, if you like. Like if you look at Renate's tip with the glucose C things, what I really like about that is she's made a plan around timing, and she specifically looked and gone like, I'm going to make a very clear plan for a particular time, and that time is when I'm in trouble, and I know I have a clear plan that I'm going to do exactly this and exactly that. So she's coupled two things together. She's sorted out the timing, and she's made it really easy for herself. She doesn't have to think too much. Doesn't have to figure it out in the moment. It's just like, bang, I know what I'm doing at this moment in time. That's a great strategy.
The time you don't want to be making decisions, it's when your blood sugar is low because your head isn't working properly. I've done it so many times where I just literally stand in front of the fridge and I'm like, I know I should be eating something, but I don't know what I should be eating. And then you inevitably overeat. I'm going to the glucose C tabs as soon as I can.
No, so I really like that one. Laura with the low carb recipes, that's also a great one about like one, making it really easy. So by having this book that like clearly lays it out for you, you can piece together different like meals and recipes and come up with like an eating plan out of the book. That really helps. And what it also does is it could make, for a lot of people, they like carbs. We all like carbs. Most of us are genetically programmed to like carbs. So by looking at the recipe book, you can find things that are really attractive to you. And you're like, oh, wow, that looks really tasty. And now all of a sudden you're coupling this behavior that you want of eating less carbs with something that's attractive to you. So I like that strategy too. Pizzo's comment about really owning the identity is a clear thing of making it social. He's making commitments to the people around him. He's getting them involved in his journey. And ultimately what that's doing is it's getting those people to help him be accountable to the things that he needs to do. And so that's really, really cool. That would be my like top few little tips that I've taken.
And it's so interesting to me too, because so many of these things are things that you don't even necessarily know you're doing it. Like we all know that we need to accept our condition and that it's important to speak to the people around us and to tell them how we're feeling and to tell them what our medication is. And I remember when I was first diagnosed, I felt like I didn't want to share with people when my blood sugar was going low or high. So I would just kind of fudge over it or like try to surreptitiously eat sweets when no one was watching or like pretend I was fine when I wasn't. And that's so bad for you because it's not only bad for your condition because you do need people to help you often when your blood sugar is in range, but it's also just it's not good for your soul. Like it's really bad to be feeling like it's something you have to be ashamed of and that you have to hide. And so, I agree. The more social, I mean, that's what we're doing here, right? Like we're making it social and making it acceptable to not have all the answers.
Yeah. The only other thing that I would add, Bridge, that like I would recommend that people do is to also be very clear about the behaviors that you actually want to change and to even write them down for yourself. And so sometimes it seems obvious, that like, oh, we need to eat well and but you should actually write down what does that actually mean? What does eating well mean? do I want to do less of this or do more of that or stop doing this entirely? And by being very specific about the behaviors that you want to change, it makes it easier to think about ways in which you can change them. Once you've clearly defined what the problem is that you're trying to attack, it can make it a lot easier to try and solve those problems. So
that makes
sense.
Thank you. And that's also what we were, so I'm bringing it back to the journal. So we had three, I don't know what the screen is there. We had 3 suggestions of like quick wins, which from a type 1 perspective were remembering to change your insulin pen needles, because most of us aren't doing that as often as we should. There's the download link. Thank you for those of you who weren't able to do it. We printed 10,000 copies and they went in a flash. Last year we had copies until like March, I think, and this year all 10,000 copies have gone. So we will be telling you ahead of time next year how to sign up if you missed out. But we were suggesting with remembering to change your pen needles to pair it with an existing behavior, like you were saying earlier. So putting it right next to where you keep your insulin, for example. So as you take your insulin out in the morning, you have a little jar of needles that you can see and you think, oh, let me do that now. And I've actually started doing that and it's made a huge difference because it's just right there. And then I go away for the weekend and I have needles in my handbag and it doesn't even occur to me to change my needles. So obviously something about how easy it is working.
Yeah.
We're going to bring up any questions that you have now. Feel free to ask in the chat and we will happily ask any of our panelists. If you have any questions about how to change your behavior, or if you have any suggestions of hacks that you would like to share, we asked our panelists to share something from their lives. But yeah, please ask your questions. Leon wants to know, this one's for you, Nick, this is certainly not for me. How do you manage your glucose while running such long distances? I also want to know that. Are you just eating? I have no idea. Please answer.
Yeah, so it is a tricky one. For example, when I did Ultra Trail Cape Town, you start at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So you there. I was there at 2:30, 3 to watch the 100K guys go off, and I would have early on. I'd have muesli, yogurt, and a little bit of fruit with that.
No insulin. A little insulin.
A little bit of insulin, yeah. So I mixed between that and just a healthy egg, cheese on a piece of sort of toast.
Okay. You take a reduced dose.
Reduced dosage. Yeah. So I mean that race was 11.5 hours. So yeah. So over that time you obviously the insulin amount was very small. And then you're just managing it. You're trying to eat every 45 minutes. Some of the races are
while you're running. What do you eat?
Yeah, you're snacking on bars, apples. I like mixed nuts, potatoes. Cooked potatoes in salt was always a good one for me.
Yeah.
And then obviously hydration is key because dehydration is not good for anyone, specifically if you've got type 1 diabetic. So I used to hydrate with Noon, sugar-free Noon. So I'd have 1 Noon, 1 water. And then just nibbling on bars. The bars are obviously you work those what works for you over time. And you just continuously just snacking the whole way through with a decent meal somewhere at an aid station to make sure it gets you home. Yeah.
We've still got you. What is your sugar run at when you're running? What are you aiming for?
So I'm obviously rather be slightly higher than low.
Yeah.
So between sort of 10 and 13 was kind of optimal. Yeah.
And you got energy then for running? Is that not how you?
No, I was absolutely fine. Yeah. And some of those runs I ran with finger pricks, which was a lot more difficult because obviously you're sweating all the time and you've got to stop, and that's you always think, no, I can push on, I'm feeling fine. Meanwhile, you're crashing. And then the other 2 times I've tested 2 different types of monitors.
Okay.
And obviously that's a lot easier to control it.
I mean, being able to wave something over your arm is significantly easier than having to stop and fiddle with little
Exactly.
sticks.
It just takes the guessing out of it and stops you from being lazy and not stopping and testing. Yeah.
Jonathan wants to know here, there are clearly some actual endurance athletes here. I'm just in awe that you would try something like this. Do you use a camelback, and how do you mix your energies? What do you use to measure? I also want to know, while you're answering about drinks, why don't you just drink like Powerade? Wouldn't that keep it high enough the whole time? Or is that rubbish for runners? Clearly, I don't know anything.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. I guess you could drink a sugar-free Powerade, or yeah.
You
So
don't want a sugary one. No, you're not running enough.
no, I think that would just spike me. I control it with my foods, and obviously got a Coke in the back. Yeah, so the noon for me, the sugar-free noon was very good to keep the energy levels that had that sweetness, that keeps you going. So my sugar was in my foods, you know, in terms of nuts, potatoes, all of that sort of thing. Sweets for the lows or something like that. And yeah, I saw a question about a camelback. I use a Salomon backpack, which is obviously more designed for running, and it's got plenty of space, pocket space, so it's easy to access all these treats that you need along the way.
Like having a little center pack on your back with your snacks.
Exactly.
Rian would like to know if you are going to run the comrades. And say respect.
First answer, no.
Wait, so you drive in a car?
Yes, no. Yeah, I actually had a bet with someone to do the Ultra Trail Cape Town 100 following my 65, and it was before, the bet was before that, and when I was about 40 odd Ks, I just come out of a low, and I've been walking for a good 3 Ks, 4 Ks, and it's ready to crawl under a rock, literally. And I thought about that 100K, and I said no chance. Yeah, and too many people running comrades. So stick to the mountains.
Thank you so much, Nick. I also want to ask Naim about cycling while we're on the sport topic, and then we're gonna move on to a low carb diet. How do you manage your blood sugar and cycling and twisting and how do you eat and all of that?
Okay, firstly, the Freestyle Libre, that has come quite handy with me, especially while cycling. My sugar levels before the Libre sensor, when you're cycling, you come to a certain point and you are out of energy, and you just have to stop a race or stop a cycle or whatever it is on there. And with the Freestyle Libre, I've been checking up my sugar levels all the time. And generally, as a cyclist, you've got your 3 pockets at the back. And I carry a slice of a bread with me, a sandwich. I put peanut butter and a bit of honey, keep it in a foil and in my pocket, and energy bars. So while you're cycling, doing your endurance 100-kilometer Cape Town, the August cycle tour, or your 94.7. This weekend is a 122-kilometer race that I'll be taking part in as well.
Oh.
And you just a whole lot of food in your pocket, and you got your energy drinks as well. So constantly, you got to be eating, like Nick was saying, constantly be eating all the time.
And very little on board.
Checking your PG levels, yeah. And,
so before you would have to park your bike to check your blood sugar, because you can't do it while you're standing.
You mean as with the Freestyle Libre, or you're talking with
the Libre? You do it while you're cycling? No, you'd crash.
While I'm cycling, I've got here's the sensor I put here, just pull it out and just check on there. And it's quite well. I've got my handle on the bar, just check, and you've got your readings on there,
Yeah, that's amazing. Lucky, actually, I use the sensor and the phone, but you wouldn't want to be using your phone while you're mid-cycle in case you dropped it, I suppose.
And that did happen to me. I used the phone, and it did fall down. So I said, really rather just keep the relay with me. Yeah.
Sarah says we'll be packing loads of food for this race with Naim. That is an extraordinary distance to be cycling. Oh my goodness. Someone was asking earlier about how dangerous it is to do sport with high sugar. And I know the advice is that if your blood sugar is 14, you mustn't exercise. There are Charlene. What have you found with cycling? Do you not cycle if your blood sugar is too high?
Initially, what I'll do is, if it's because many times on race day, you have that anxiety, the adrenaline kicking in, and the sugar levels, the glucose levels just go up. So I'll normally keep an insulin pen with me and inject maybe 1 or 2 units of insulin just before the start of the race as well. And if it's still high, later on in the race, you'll feel that you're picking up a bit of muscle spasms or like a cramp type of thing that's continuously happening. Then you know, okay, I need to stop cycling. So you just, it's either you carry on to the end, easy pedaling, or you carry on, or you just cycle yourself with the pain. Yeah.
I think it's amazing. So Lisa says, I'm in awe, hats off to you. I'm in awe of you guys too. There is just no way anyone would ever get me doing endurance sports with or without diabetes. I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Daniel has asked, is it easier to start a new healthy behavior or to stop an unhealthy one? I'm handing this one straight to you, Seb. I do have no idea. It's a great question.
That is a great question. I really like that question. It would be really tough to say, Daniel. Like I wouldn't know. And as I said, like for each person, it's going to be different. It depends on what the incentives are at play and how much you have. Sort of, if say the bad behavior is really connected in with like a social group, like for example, you go drinking with your buddies every Wednesday and you really want to stop that, it's going to be really hard because you're socially connected into that group and it's going to be difficult to do that. If, however, you want to start a new habit and you flip that on its head and you've got friends who are runners and you start running with them, it might be really easy. So it really depends on the context and like what's happening with those 2 different behaviors and what they kind of look like at the moment. But yeah, I would use the principles again to look and see how these behaviors are affecting you, and can you use any of these principles to try and change them in the future. I know that's an unsatisfying answer because everybody likes yes or no.
He wants to know if the good new one cancels out the old bad one. I suppose it depends if they're both in the same theme, but they could be different. My friend Dave tells a great story about how apparently there's this principle that you become the person, I'm not going to say it as well as he does, you become the person that is the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you essentially become like your friends are. And so he decided that he wanted to lose weight and he looked for his skinny friends and started hanging out with them more and said, like, can I spend more time with you? And their behaviors were completely different, he said. So before he would go for like coffee dates and he would go for like long, lazy lunches. And now all of a sudden they were saying, yeah, let's hang out. We're going for a hike at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And yeah, let's hang out. Let's go for a walk on the promenade. And we can like get some sparkling water on the way kind of thing. And I do think that the social thing is a huge motivator. Yeah, because you do what the people around you are doing because that's what we do. And so you do kind of have to be, if you want to change your behavior, maybe a bit more careful about what the people around you are doing.
Totally. And like my personal experience, and I'm a runner myself, and I definitely see like when I hang out more with my running mates, I'm much healthier. I don't have that extra beer like on the weekend because I know like, oh, we're going to go for a long run tomorrow morning, and all of my behaviors fall in line around the social group that I'm spending time with. Yeah. So I think it's great advice to find people with healthy routines and just hook in and kind of like almost, to use a cycling analogy, just slipstream behind them, make your life easier.
I think that's also what's nice about this growing diabetes community that we have, is that you can, we're normalizing the fact that it's it's normal for diabetes to be hard, but it's also normal to keep trying, like to have a bad day. And instead of being like, oh, that's it, I'm giving up, to be like, no, okay, everyone has bad days. So let's just try again tomorrow and see how that is. We have time for one more question. I think it's borderline impossible, but I would love to hear if anyone has suggestions. Alethea is saying, I'm in a catch-22 situation in that I need surgery on both feet, so exercise is out of the question. That sounds so hard, Alethea. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. I would say that maybe there is a form of yoga that you could do that's more upper body stuff. I would be curious to know what exercise or how Renate is bringing exercise into her life, because I know you have to be really careful, or during pregnancy, like what your attitude towards it is, because that's somewhat of a limitation. And then I would also say maybe aqua aerobics. Lee is saying aqua aerobics. That's a good suggestion. Maybe seeing a physio who might be able to help. Renate, have you got any tips for us?
Well, at this point, I can only do walking. So whenever I feel that my sugar, or if I can see my sugar levels are a bit high, I quickly go for a quick walk before my next client arrives and before I eat, because it gives me satisfaction to know that I did a little bit of exercise, and that will bring my sugar levels down. So I think definitely yoga will help for her. Just to take it easy, basically, and not be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, swimming's also coming through as a suggestion. Thank you. And last question, because it came up earlier and I said I would come back and I didn't. Laura, tell us what a low carb meal plan looks like. Now that you're in low carb land, what does that look like for you? Oh, hang on, you're on mute.
Sorry. I think that's quite a broad question. So I don't know, where my mind just goes to is maybe just to say what I've been having for breakfast, lunch, and supper these days. So I think Alray also said in the comments she has yogurt and low carb muesli from Woolworths. I have the same thing in the morning. I tend to go a little bit higher fat percentage in the yogurt just to give me more energy and keep me fuller for longer, and it tastes better than low fat yogurt. Then the low carb muesli you can get from Woolies, and I put some sort of low GI, low carb fruit in there. So what I like is blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. Sometimes adding frozen berries is nice too.
Oh, I haven't tried that. Because frozen berries are much cheaper. You can get them in bulk and they're much cheaper. And the Nomu Skinny hot chocolate powder, I know I talk about this all the time, but if you mix that into plain yogurt, it turns it into chocolate yogurt. I do that with nuts for breakfast. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so
that I agree. So okay, and then lunch and dinner?
So lunch and dinner, so far from the recipe book, I've made a low carb cottage pie, which is a flavored mince with, instead of mashed potato, they recommend a cauliflower mash as an alternative, which has been really delicious. And for dinner, sometimes, I'll have leftovers or I'll make one type of meal for a few days. Another idea is this creamy chicken bake that I made the other day. So I think low carb can be just as tasty and great for the sugars.
Michael Monwick, I'm not sure if he's on the call now, but he wrote an article for us once about how he switched to low carb, and he said he just took the bland starch out of all the meals, so that instead of having spaghetti bolognese and vegetables, he had the bolognese and then more vegetables. And you don't actually notice, because instead of having curry and rice, he would have curry and the vegetables. And actually the carb is a lot of the time not particularly delicious. It's the thing that is soaking up the flavor. And so I started trying to do that, and it made a huge difference. And I still eat carbs, but I eat much fewer because the tasty stuff is often not the carbs. Charlene saying my son makes frozen berry smoothies. Sounds delicious. He loves them. Berries are magical. I do find them prohibitively expensive in the small packs, but frozen is a terrific tip. Thank you. We're out of time. I don't know how it happened. That hour went so fast. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I don't know if we want to bring everyone back on screen to say goodbye and to say thank you. I am so grateful for everyone spending the time with us. This video is going to be on YouTube and on our Facebook page. So if you want to watch it again, if you missed it or if you want to share it with friends, please feel free. Thank you so much to all our friends for sharing and Deb for sharing wisdom with us, and everyone for joining us this evening. It was really lovely. Good night, everyone, and keep well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.